Hey y'all, I've lost 172 pounds using a whole bunch of methods, but two of the most successful ones have been ADF, alternate day fasting, and OMAD, one meal a day. You may have heard of these, and if you have, here's what's really surprising. The diet that everyone thinks is easier is actually more aggressive in a lot of ways. And by the end of this video, you'll know everything you need to know about both diets to decide which one you want to try. First, let's make sure we're all on the same page about what these diets actually are. They are both a form of intermittent fasting, which is where you break up your life into periods of eating and periods of fasting. Different versions of the diet are commonly referred to by the number of hours that you do each. So 16-8 intermittent fasting is fasting for 16 hours and then eating for 8. So let's get into the two versions that we're going to talk about today. ADF, alternate day fasting, means that you fast for 36 hours and then eat for 12, alternating back and forth. So here's what that looks like in practice. Say you finish dinner on Monday night at 7 p.m., you fast all day Tuesday, nothing but water, black tea, coffee, anything with no calories. Then Wednesday morning at 7 a.m., you can eat your breakfast. You eat normally on Wednesday until 7 p.m., then start another 36-hour fast. This gives you 10 to 14 meals per week. OMAD, or one meal a day, is exactly what it sounds like. You eat one meal per day, typically dinner, but it doesn't have to be, which means that you're fasting for about 23 hours and eating for about 1 hour every day. And this diet gives you exactly 7 meals per week. Now, this is where most people get it wrong. When you look at these diets side by side, OMAD actually gives you fewer total meals per week and significantly shorter eating windows, just as we discussed. So despite the fact that you're eating every single day with OMAD, it's actually the more aggressive diet when you do the math. And when I say it's more aggressive, I don't necessarily mean calorie deficit wise, because you can make that work either way, which we'll get into a little bit later. But it's more aggressive in that you're eating less of the time overall. Most people assume that ADF is harder because you're going a full day and a half without food, which can be hard sometimes. But OMAD keeps you in a constant deficit every single day with no break, while ADF actually gives you full eating days where you can eat at maintenance or above, so you actually feel really full a lot of the time. So right off the bat, if someone told you that OMAD is easier because you eat every single day, that's not necessarily the case. It just depends on your personality, lifestyle, and your current relationship with food, which we'll also get into later. Now that you have some understanding of the surprising difference in eating windows between the diets, let's dive into why those longer fasting windows with ADF actually matter. The first major difference comes down to what's actually happening in your body during those extended fasting hours. This brings us to autophagy. This is your body's cellular recycling process, where it cleans out damaged cells and regenerates new ones. Research shows that it takes a minimum of about 16 hours or so of fasting for autophagy to really increase, and some studies say it needs a full 24 hours. But pretty much across the board, they agree that by 36 hours, autophagy is running very efficiently. With OMAD, you're doing 23-hour fasting windows, so you're definitely getting some autophagy benefits, absolutely. But with ADF at 36 hours, supposedly you're hitting that sweet spot where the benefits really multiply. Think of autophagy like taking out the trash in your cells, if that makes any sense. At 16 hours, you've started the cleanup, and at 24 hours, you're doing a deep clean, but at 36 hours, you're doing a complete renovation, replacing old damaged parts with new ones, which is a good thing. If you've been researching weight loss methods and have heard of autophagy before, it's probably because people talk about it when discussing post-weight loss loose skin. My starting weight was 560 pounds, so loose skin is something that I think about quite a bit, to be honest, and something that I'm definitely going to have to deal with. But there are so many studies linking autophagy to increased skin elasticity, meaning it bounces back more so you have less loose skin. So it's definitely something that I've been seeking after. Now, I want to be clear, 23-hour fasts with OMAD still improve all this stuff. The difference isn't night and day, but the 36-hour fasts consistently push these benefits further. So if you think about the practical reason ADF works so well, it's essentially that by skipping one extra meal that you would have eaten with OMAD, you're actually gaining another 12 hours of fasting or so, because you skip that meal, then you're up for a little bit after you would normally eat dinner, then hopefully you're sleeping for 7 to 9 hours, and then you do your morning routine and then eat breakfast. They're easy gains. But before you think that ADF is automatically just better, just because of the longer fasts, there's something even more important that we need to talk about. we need to understand what's happening with protein. Here's what most people don't think about. When you're losing weight, you just want to burn fat, not muscle. Protein keeps your muscles strong, but here's the catch. Your body can only use so much protein all at once for building and maintaining muscle. It's not quite this simple, but basically there's a protein ceiling per meal. If you eat a moderate amount of protein every meal, your body uses it efficiently, but if you pile in way too much in one sitting, your body's not going to use all of that for muscle building. That extra protein just gets burned as fuel or converted to other things, so you're literally wasting its potential. Now, let's apply this to our two diets. With OMAD, you're getting all of your protein in one meal, so a chunk of it is getting used optimally, but the rest, not so much. With ADF, you get 0 protein on fasting days, which is a problem, but on your eating days, you can spread your protein across several meals and hit that sweet spot multiple times. So you're actually maximizing what your body can do with it. So here's the thing, cardio and weight training work great on ADF because all you have to do is line up your workout days with your eating days, because then you can maximize the amount of muscle retention, or gain depending on how hard you're working out. So we've covered autophagy and protein timing, but there's a third metabolic advantage to ADF that most people don't know about: calorie cycling. This advantage is both psychological and metabolic. So with OMAD, you're in a deficit every single day with no break. So I've always been good at dieting hard for a little while, and then I'd fall off the wagon just because I'd burn out. And I think it's pretty much that way for everyone. So ADF gives you a mental break. So you eat above your maintenance calories every other day, and you still end up with a weekly deficit, but you don't feel like you're constantly restricting. That mental break is actually huge for sticking with it long term, at least for me. So here's where it gets interesting. When you're in a constant calorie deficit day after day, your body adapts. Not completely, but some. And your metabolism slows down a little bit, and you lose muscle, along with fat, and weight loss gets harder. But with calorie cycling, bouncing between deficit and maintenance days, your body never fully adapts to that restriction mode, so you end up losing similar weight, but you keep more muscle in the process. This is why ADF has become really popular with people that are trying to do body recomposition, because you can lose the same weight and keep more muscle with ADF than OMAD, because you're cycling between deficit and maintenance. Plus, those eating days help keep your metabolism regulating hormones from crashing. When you're in a prolonged deficit, these hormones tank, and your metabolism slows way down. So regular eating days help keep that from happening. Okay, so we've covered the science, longer fasting windows, better protein optimization, and metabolic advantages from caloric cycling. Now, let's put this all together so you can make a clear decision. So, after everything we've covered, here's how to actually choose. I would say choose OMAD if you have significant fat to lose, so I'm talking 50, 75 to 100 pounds. At that stage, your body will protect your muscle mass pretty well, regardless of your diet, so the protein timing matters a little bit less. OMAD's simplicity and daily structure might work better for you psychologically. Maybe you just genuinely prefer eating every single day. I mean, I definitely do. Some people find the routine and consistency of OMAD easier to stick with than ADF. Maybe your schedule works better with daily meals. Maybe you have family dinners every night, and missing every other dinner with ADF just isn't sustainable for your lifestyle. I would say choose ADF if you're leaner or closer to your goal weight. The protein timing and muscle preservation advantages become much more important the less fat you have to lose. Or if you are prioritizing muscle retention during fat loss, especially if you're training regularly. Maybe you like the idea of having full eating days where you're not constantly restricting. That mental break can make the protocol way more sustainable for the long term. I do have one critical warning about OMAD that won't affect everyone, but it does affect me. So if you have any history of binge eating disorder, I really don't think OMAD is the way to go. It can become a trap where you just end up eating loads and loads of food in that one meal, destroying any progress you've made. I have a friend who does OMAD, and it works great for him, and he's been doing it for years, and he's super fit. But for people who struggle with binge eating like myself, OMAD really just enables that behavior, to be honest. ADF, with multiple meals spread across eating days, can actually be easier to control because I know I'm gonna be eating more times, right? This is honestly the main reason I'm doing ADF instead of OMAD. I'm only fighting my brain half of the time instead of all the time. Something else to consider is that you don't have to pick one forever. You could do ADF during the week when you're busy, and then OMAD on the weekends when your schedule is different. I'm actually considering doing that because I struggle fasting a whole day on the weekends, especially if I'm not particularly busy. Or you could start with one diet and switch as you get leaner or your needs change. My honest recommendation after losing 172 pounds using both is to just try them both. Give them both a good bit of run though. The best diet is the one that you can stick with long enough to get results. Both of these work. The science suggests ADF has some advantages for muscle retention and metabolic health, but OMAD simplicity might help you stay consistent, especially early on in your journey. Test one for 4 to 6 weeks, track your results, and then make an informed decision about whether to stick with it or switch. If you found this breakdown helpful so far and you want more evidence-based content on fat loss, make sure you hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. My next video is all about the importance of sleep for weight loss. This is definitely a factor that most people completely overlook and can make or break your results. I also do weekly weigh-ins. I really started this channel to vlog my own weight loss journey, but I actually like making these kinds of videos too. As I said before, I'm currently at 388 pounds and I started at 560. I do have a goal of hitting 350 by the end of the year. I hit a little bit of a rough patch recently, so I'm thinking that's probably not gonna happen, but we're still shooting for it. I have had a couple of weeks where I lost 10 or more pounds, so it's possible. Just gotta keep pushing. And I do read every comment that you guys leave, so drop your questions below, whether it's about these diets or your specific situation. So to recap, we covered how OMAD is actually more aggressive than ADF despite eating daily, why longer fasting windows matter for autophagy, the research showing that you can't optimize muscle building in one meal, and metabolic advantages of caloric cycling, as well as a decision framework for choosing the diet that's best for your situation. The truth is, both of these diets work for fat loss. I'm proof of that. But now you understand why they work differently, and when each one makes sense. So pick one. Commit to it for at least a month, track your results, and adjust as needed. You got this. If you're leaning toward trying ADF but are feeling intimidated, check out this video where I share 4 tips that made starting ADF easy for me. The practical strategies that made the transition smoother. The link for it's right here. Thanks for watching, y'all. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.